I'm Will Hedrick.
And I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And this is Dog Ears and Timestamps, a book club podcast.
And a tale of two friends, just like our book.
Just like our book. A misdirection there. Subverting expectations.
I ended up buying the book this week. I already told
on
you
Audible.
that. But yeah, I bought it on Audible. Yeah, I guess I had to buy it to read it. But I bought it on Audible. And I got surprised with like a little... Q&A at the end
of
with
it.
With Rhett and Link, and they had their producer, writer, better half, whatever she is. They had her. Man, I just had her name too before we started.
Wasn't it Stevie?
Yeah, Stevie. Yeah, and she was doing the Q&A, and she's always on Good Mythical More, I think is what she's doing. But
I've seen her before, the very small handful of times that I've watched their content.
Yeah. So, and she was on there giving the questions to him, and it was cool. It was a surprise, and then it was another hour of listening, and it was kind of nice too, because listening to the book, I thought for sure it would be like Rhett and Link narrating it, and it wasn't. And it could be the way that I'm listening to the books, because I'm listening to them at like a little bit faster than normal speed. But the last few books, I just have not been into the voices. Like even this one, like especially because I had built the voices in my head off of the people I already knew
for half the book, or more than half the book.
Yeah. And so when I hopped into here, it's like, not only could I not tell the difference between like Rhett and Link when they were talking on their own, like I could tell the difference if they were talking to each other, but like if one of them was talking to, Mr. Whitewood or whatever, right, then they almost sounded like a stereotypical like fat Southern kid, just, I don't know why. And everyone sounded so like overly South, and it does make sense. They are in the South, and they're trying to embody the persona of the South and all these people,
right,
and so I mean it makes sense that of course they'd use a super hardcore Southern accent, and I'm sure it didn't go without being approved by somebody,
right,
Stevie, Rhett or Link, or they're one of their people. But like I don't know, I guess just this one was my own doing, because I had read it, basically in my voice version of Rhett and Link's voice. So now right, I'm swapping voices in the middle. But it was cool hearing them at the end, having a little Q&A talking about the book. And one of their original ideas for the book, Link was talking. He was like, I remember in the beginning we were just sitting down, and there was a piece of paper, and all it said was, they're feeding them humans at the barbecue. Like they were killing people, and then they were barbecuing it up, and they had the grill master, Mr. Whitewood or whatever, and then they're like, how are we going to make him grill human body parts to feed to the townspeople? That was like the starting point. And it was also interesting too, because they were talking about writing a book together, and how like a lot of authors will go in, we've talked about it before, how Stephen King sometimes will go in and he'll start a story not knowing exactly where it's going to go, and then he just lets the characters in the story grow and develop as he does, and the time with the characters, right, they all grow, and they couldn't really do that with this because it's the two of them collaborating on a single work, so they had to have a full encompassed idea, and then they had to kind of just figure things out and make sure it was streamlined and good, and everything fit together. Right. And there was a good reason for this, that and that's probably why all their story beats kind of fit out so well. And we kind of called a few things without even really meaning to. Like I bet, like how we were both saying, like I bet I bet the kidney stones is going to come back up, and then it became like a
just like a little past thing. Something that I thought about, and I don't remember if I thought about it like early on, or if I thought about it during this section of the reading or something, but it just kind of came to mind whenever, we're in a situation of the story where they're both together, where Rex and Leif are together, and they're experiencing the same thing, but then it jumps between their heads, like without even saying, and now we're moving to Rex. It just like the next paragraph is literally, we've moved on already. Do you think that they wrote their analogous characters' internal thoughts, like just they wrote it? Like, Rhett wrote Rex's thought, and certainly whenever they were talking about each other, whenever, Rex would be like, man, Leif is being annoying.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe or maybe not maybe, I think probably almost certainly, but do you think that they intentionally were like, all right, well, I'm going to write all of Rex's internal dialogue, you write all of Leif's internal dialogue, and you know, with the understanding that we're talking about each other.
Right.
Because I feel like that would be like a kind of cool thing, and kind of, it made me laugh more whenever they were ragging on each other in their minds. I was like, well, that's them talking about each other, and because they grew up together, and they would have these old, like, kind of like long time, not grudges against each other, but just like, God, he always gets this way, you know?
Yeah. The way they made it sound, at least in the little Q&A, was that they're kind of overdone dramatizations, like, of themselves, like
right.
like how Rhett and Rex are both kind of they like to be in the lead,
a little more alpha.
A little bit more alpha. They like to be right, and if they're and they like to tell people that they're right. You know, maybe not in those words, but you know what I mean. Like, and how, for example, the scooter, like, he never rode a scooter. That was not true. But, but to personify his character, he insisted that if he just got his scooter leg up to par, then it would be the better mode of transportation. When
it would never admit otherwise.
Yeah, and he would never admit otherwise. So, I think that they probably both had input on like, you know, every part of the book, dialogue and everything, you know, but I think you're right in the fact that, like, okay, you know, I'm going to write my stuff, and then he probably, you know, one of them probably wrote it, the other one probably read it and was like, hey, I think maybe they probably had notes for each other, but I think you're right. I think you're right that they did write their own parts, because Link was talking about how, like, a lot of the internal battles that he had with himself, and a lot of the internal worrying about their friendship, and like the building structure of things, like of their friendship, at least. Link was talking about how he really did worry about their friendship a lot.
Yeah.
And how, those were actual thoughts that he'd put into his head. Now, and other things that they did too in the book that were just it was well said, because they've both been in therapy for a long time, so they're figuring out. They've been, on a third party level trying to figure themselves out. So now they realize certain emotions and things they were going through as, when they were younger. So they can put pen to paper and make it a little bit more, translatable, or a little bit more, easier for somebody like us to get exactly their, mindset and train of thought.
Right. Yeah.
And honestly, like, as I was reading, I didn't feel like they were super overly done, but I do feel like they were obviously like there was less middle ground, so that their characters could be more, one way or the other, rather than them both being a bit more well-rounded like they actually are.
But I think that's probably, in probably the vast majority of cases in real life, kids are just loud versions of what they're going to be when they're adults,
that's
before they realize, like, how to temper yourself and be like, okay, well, I'm not going to be mad at this every single time it happens, because I'm an adult now and I know how to control myself. But when you're 13, you're just like, you're exploding with anything that's happening to you, whether you're actually literally exploding outwardly, or, just even if you're internalizing it because you're a more quieter type, but you're still more extreme. All the like facets of you are more extreme versions of the way that they're going to be whenever you're older. For the most part, people don't really change, at least their core nature and, their habits, but they will, just temper themselves a little bit.
They'll figure out what aligns with them, and but you're right, at the core that doesn't change
how
too
you
much.
Can be yourself and not get beat up by society for being ridiculous, yeah.
How'd you end up liking the book, like, as a whole? Did you think it was...
I enjoyed it pretty much constantly.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a second reading it that I was, bored or was wishing that something else was happening.
Me neither.
The only time that I was like, man, I wish that just this one thing was a little bit different was at the end when they're having the huge fight at the spring.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, I wish that they had like a chance to just really beat up on some of these people, especially Mary Hadaway. Like, I wish Janine had in the moment I was like, man, I wish Janine had just like fucking socked her and broke her nose, just something like really violent, because, one, they're awful people that deserve it. And two, just like the very brief interpersonal interactions that Mary Hadaway and Janine had, meeting here and there in the town throughout the story. And it was just like, man, it would be so satisfying to just fucking sock her. And then fucking Mike comes in with the fucking golf cart and runs over some of the adults, and it goes off. They start bashing people with golf clubs, and I was like, oh, okay, they are fucking doing it.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, man, I wish they would have just done it, and then they did it. But aside from, that 1 second where I immediately got shown that I shouldn't have doubted, I never had like a second that I was like, man, I wish that this was different for some reason. I think that everything went in a way that I completely was willing to accept because of what they had built before, and then also enjoyed.
Yeah, I definitely think after the first, week of reading, and then there was just that one part that kind of took me out of it.
The trail mix thing, yeah, I forgot about that for a second. It was just a little weird.
But even that is it's forgettable, like you were saying. Like it's not like it's a crazy huge detail that like threw me so far out of the book, like I couldn't get back in.
You never get back on track. Yeah.
And I got a little tense when Donna was pointing the gun at Mr. Whitewood, even though I don't like him and I wanted him to get shot. I was just like, don't let her do it. Like, I don't know why. I was just like, that can't be good for her mental health.
Right,
like,
yeah.
I was stressed out for her. I didn't want her to go to jail. Like, I didn't want murder to happen, Like, even if they're bad people, I still didn't want people to murder each other. Like, and then they go all anime style and try and make us have a freaking pull on our heartstrings with Mr. Whitewood. Like we're going to fall into his team going for his daughter.
I don't know if that was so much the intention, so much as like, how do we introduce the supernatural element? Because that's when we find out that it is truly supernatural.
And that is a nice way to do it when you kind of build a little bit of sympathy.
Let's jump into his head for the backstory so that we can, this is how we reveal the supernatural monster that's there, the spirit,
And how it could happen to anybody.
Right, yeah. And just to explain it, because the alternative is just like, so he's just a bad guy because we need a bad guy.
Right, and that's what we were trying to figure out last week is like, why is he the bad guy and what's the point really, and we were satisfied almost with it just kind of being a Scooby-Doo sort of, he wants the town's power, the power of the town.
You're like almost immediately in the second section of reading to make a Scooby-Doo reference.
That's
and
what
I was like, God damn it.
I was even thinking like, did Will read extra? No,
right.
He didn't. He would have told me probably, and then not have made the Scooby-Doo reference.
Right,
But I thought that was funny how they like immediately after that I was like, oh, there's Will's comment.
Right. I thought that just everything about it was really good.
Yeah.
Is it as objective as you can get, whenever you're analyzing, a piece of narrative that somebody's written? Is it objectively the greatest narrative that I've ever written? Not by far.
Yeah.
Is it one that I've enjoyed probably more than at least half of the narratives that I've read? Absolutely.
Yeah.
As far as like things that I've enjoyed and would maybe actively seek out reading again in another year or something like that, it's definitely like in the top half of things that I've read, which must like number in the several hundreds at this point, so I thought it was great. I really liked this book.
Good.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah, I was a little not worried if you'd like it or not, but I felt like I was pushing it more, and you were just like, yeah, I like these guys and I like the idea, so let's go for it. And then to hear it come around and us both be like, well, I'm really glad we did that. Like, that's satisfying for, I guess, two aspects. One, just like we're both, like, yes, we got a good book and we were right. And then two, it's like people that we follow and enjoy their content. It's like, and they did a good job. They're successful. So it's like, I don't know. It's weird to say like I'm proud of them because I don't feel like I'm really actually like proud of them. Like I am obviously like people that achieve a lot, like you can admire maybe is the better word. Like, but because to have
it is a weird
pride,
feeling to have for people that you follow in this
know.
sense. Because you don't really know them. You kind of know them because they're presenting parts of themselves to you on a daily basis.
Oh yeah.
And
it makes me happy that they did so well. So I obviously have some sort of
there
emotional
is sort of like
connection.
A pride. It sounds weird to say pride.
It does say weird
because
weird.
Pride in a traditional sense is like something that like your parents say.
Yeah, it's very paternal. Yeah.
Or like they say you should have pride in work that you do. It's more like it for growing up at least. Pride is described to you as something that's very personal and in immediate relations. Maybe I feel weird saying that I'm proud of my friends sometimes.
Yeah,
because I don't know that I had like any real contribution to their efforts. Like it feels like it's something that you, at least the way that it had always been presented to us growing up, was that like if you don't have a contribution towards it, like a tangible contribution, then pride is not an appropriate word for that feeling. But I don't think that's necessarily true the more that I think about it.
Yeah, and I think as you're kind of breaking it down too, it kind of made it more clear why pride was the word that jumped to my mind when I started talking about it, is because like I am kind of, I do brag about it a little bit. Like I definitely have told a bunch of people about this book and who they are, and that like, like, hey, it's the guys from Good Mythical Morning, and they wrote a really funny, really good book. And I guess that is a little bit of pride, like my selection of content creators, like they did a good job. Just like how every time I tell somebody like, oh yeah, this new, or like I give you some sort of fact that it's like, I wonder where he got that from. Oh, probably Joe Rogan Experience. Like, I don't know. It's cool when somebody that you've invested time in, because that's probably you trying to make it your own a little bit, even though you didn't contribute, like you were saying, but it's like, I'm making it my own because it's like, because I'm vocalizing it and telling people about it and talking about it. And It's just, I don't know, I guess there's some level of pride when you can go and tell other people without having kind of shame. Like I used to be so embarrassed about talking about anime. Like I wasn't ever proud of my anime habit. And then I remember you wore like a Naruto,
I had a headband that I used to wear to school.
Yeah. I don't even know if it was like, how much you wore it, but I just remember one day I saw you wear it and I was like, Will doesn't give a fuck. Like that is so cool. Like he didn't care. He's just into what he's into. Like I need to be more like that. And then I legitimately remember thinking that, like, I think we were in Miss DeWitt's class in history or something. I remember thinking like, wow, Will, he's wearing that anime thing on his sleeve, like literally on his sleeve, and he's fucking like, he's proud of it. Like that's cool. Like I just remember thinking that was cool, and like I was proud of you.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah. now it's weird. But
I think that was at least just as a sort of like joke response to that. I think I was just taunting people to say something.
Right? Yeah.
Not so much just like, I don't care what they think. I was like, fucking say something.
The way it came off to me was like, wow, he doesn't care what people think. So he's just into the things that he likes, and you can like it or get over it. And
there was a point whenever I got tired of people picking on me for things, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna fight them if they say something.
I'll just fight somebody.
And so I'm going to try and make them say something, because then I just started wanting to fight people. But in any case,
yeah,
it was. But yeah, I think that you can also be proud on behalf of somebody.
Yeah,
that you like.
Yeah,
that's you appreciate their work, or you're friends with them, or whatever it is, and like if they succeed in something, I think you can feel pride on behalf of them as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Because obviously, if you like somebody, you want them to succeed. But anyways,
yeah.
I think that, and also going back to what you had told me about the Q&A prior to recording, they sort of revealed that they were hoping to make this into a series, depending on, I imagine, like things we've talked about, how well it sells, and then specifically with them, how much time can they get to write the second one, and how soon can they get that time, because they do so much already.
Yeah, and I know that when in the Q&A they even asked, like, if you guys want a second book, like, let us know, because I think obviously like they have their, like you were just saying, they have their hands in so many baskets. It's like they want to know what our desires are too. Like it's like, hey, we can't do it without you guys, and we appreciate what you guys are doing. This is something we found obviously like a new passion and drive for. Like let us know if you want more of it, because we want to make more. Like
right, yeah.
and like we we're both saying, the ending was so open-ended. It's like it had a Stephen King-esque vibe for me, because it was like,
because it doesn't end perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. We
like the only person that's in trouble is Whitewood, but he's dead, so it doesn't really matter that he's in trouble. What matters more is that the town is not under the spell anymore, except the people that are in the cult that still believe in Whitewood.
And it's not like they stopped the water, so the water could still be, corrupting people.
I think that's what, if they go into a sequel, because obviously then Alicia is, riding home and sees the whatever her name was, Ruby, the Whitewood's daughter, who's obviously still possessed by the water spirit, is like, hey, we miss you, or whatever, just like being creepy.
Yeah.
And so having the 7 sacrifices gave the water spirit enough power to be able to escape the water, I guess is what they're going for. And so now it's out there doing something. What is its goal now that it's free from the spring?
Yeah.
And so that would be the continuation of the series, which I could get behind. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I like how I didn't know what the title was for the longest time. Like, I didn't know how it wrapped into the book, because obviously Bleak Creek, we know what that is, but I was like, what are the lost causes of Bleak Creek, and how they tied it in, just a very subtle, like, you know, we're not sacrificing, but we're like giving up.
They're offering the children to the spring. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're the lost cause. They're the lost cause children, you know, like the ones that like we don't have any more faith in.
Right. They were the bad kids that needed to go to the reform school.
And then that wouldn't even follow suit and reform.
Yeah. They couldn't follow. They're
extra,
they couldn't follow.
They're extra rebellious, you know, and because Alicia was so extra rebellious, like she, you know, nothing could break her spirits, like that was why he was just like, this one will be good. And
because the water spirit wanted strong-spirited children.
And she was even like, okay, I'll just do what you guys want. Like, I'll just conform. And then he's like, no, you're not. Right. And she's like, what do you want from me? Because he's starting to get
desperate at that point. He's like, I'm running out of time to get all 7, you know, offerings.
And she was like,
you were supposed to be my next offering, and now you're suddenly conforming.
I know. He was so happy, too, that she was the bad kid. He's like happy he got burned. He's like,
and anytime that he found, you know, one that qualified for what the water spirit wanted, he was like, oh my God, I'm one step closer to, you know, bringing my daughter back, which is an understandable cause, I guess. Not that I have a kid and can relate specifically, but I get the idea.
Exactly.
You know?
Just something
to then start just like, you know, offering up. And the problem that I have with motivations like that sometimes, because obviously any one person can justify any of their own actions, and no matter what the situation. But like, how does the person not be like, I'm so desperate to get my daughter back, but I don't care about what the parents are going to think about the kids that I'm killing, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like, you already know how bad it is to go through that. But then again, you know, to be that delusional
all empathy,
and yeah, exactly.
Yeah, delusion. They get the delusion on them.
To think that, you know, it's justifiable because you're getting what you want, which is to a certain degree a motivation that I can understand and even empathize with, because I think that, you know,
yeah, we've talked about it
for the most part,
justify the means a lot.
Yeah, and I think that there's no like truly, you know, on the other side of that same coin, I don't think there's any truly altruistic act. I think that everybody is still doing things for themselves. Like, if I do something to help somebody, it's because it makes me feel good to help somebody,
right?
Which is a good thing.
Yeah,
it's good to enjoy helping people
for sure. Yeah, and it's good to feel good.
But you know, the definition of altruism being to do something without caring what it gets you is inherently impossible, in my opinion. You know?
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Because if helping people made me feel bad, I can't imagine I would help people.
Right, or if it made you feel nothing, you're just like, all right, back to work.
Like, what was the point of that? Yeah. I could have spent that time doing something that then made my life better. Helping people on occasion helps my life be better. Not always, but
that would be you out there always, every day, like helping people. You'd be like in Yes Man when Jim Carrey, like right after he leaves the convention and everybody's asking him for favors, like, can I have a ride? No, I can do it. Yeah, give me all the money in your wallet.
Yeah.
There you go. You know, it's just.
So I thought it was adequate motivation for a villain.
Right. Yeah.
Certainly in a story as short as it is, where we don't get, you know, a whole book to build up the villain because we're going to fight him in the next book, you know. Certainly now that if this does become a series and we're going to continue reading it, now the villain is a spirit who needs no motivation because it's a supernatural thing that is, you know, in the way that spirits often are, either inherently good or inherently evil. You know? So it doesn't have to be motivation; it just is.
Yeah, what did you think about that? Like, I don't know why, but I guess just with Rex's dad being a mortician, I kind of just, I don't know why. I guess just for them pointing that out so many times, it felt like that has to be something that comes up. Like, it didn't tell us how, you know, one of Link's mom's 3 jobs, you know, and that didn't pop up. It's not like, you know, Link's mom is also a crossing guard and saw them at the school, at the church or whatever. It's
no
Second Baptist
tie-in with
or whatever,
her careers at all.
But they tied in. They always talk. They always talked about Rex's dad's job being a mortician, and how there was the one other, you know, funeral company in town that, and it was just, I felt like the one really like kind of super dark, creepy scene for this book, for it being, for going into it thinking it was going to be a dark, creepy, scary book. The real only super dark thing I thought that happened was when they were like removing the blood from his old barber.
Yeah.
And so like they were filling with embalming fluid, I guess, and like swapping out the blood for the embalming
I don't think
fluid.
they did. Yeah, that's
like
what
that.
you would do, and typically is
Okay.
you drain the body, and so that you can then fill it up with whatever embalming fluid is these days. Because I don't think it's still purely whatever that fucking thing is, but
Formaldehyde.
Formaldehyde. I think they've gotten away from it being that 100%, but I could be wrong there. But it's pretty morbid.
That was
It's kind of the definition of morbid.
right, exactly. It seems like his dad had to have been a mortician for him to
them to have access to it. Yeah.
Well, in real life too, real Rhett. It seemed like his dad was probably a mortician. For them to know so much about the
Yeah, but that's something that could come up in research when
For
you're trying
sure.
to figure out how do we get to this point where the kids have blood.
yeah, for me it just felt so. It felt right.
and
You know what I
maybe
mean?
so, yeah.
But and now that we talk about it, I don't remember that ever coming up in one of their interviews or in the 3-part mini, back to home show that they did. This makes me kind of want to read their other book, the Book of Mythicality, because I think it just talks about them and their lives and stuff. And I know a lot of fans of this.
Not a novel; it's
Yeah.
just a literal published work, and so it's called a book.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And I know a lot of fans of them came into this book reading the Book of Mythicality.
Right.
So I know they had a little bit more background just on the town, and there's a lot of stuff that's just loosely based, obviously, on their town. Like
Right. Yeah.
they
Just
had never been to
inspiration.
they had never gone to the spring, where Bowie Creek. Bowie's Creek, I think is what their town is.
Yeah.
But in Bleak Creek, they had the source for the water, the spring.
yeah.
Thank you. And Rhett and Link were talking about how like they never saw that when they were kids, and I don't think their town was built on or I don't think that there was an old
Like a resort,
an old
or whatever.
lodge
Yeah,
or whatever
yeah.
by the springs of their town, and I don't know. It's just like there were a few things that obviously you take some liberties to write the story, but the whole time since I didn't know what was true and what wasn't true, I just was like that Link's Rhett's dad must have been a mortician, and that's why he knew about how to embalm.
Yeah.
And then it made me think about kids knowing so much about what's going on, but me living in this world where it's like, oh, he's just a kid, like he doesn't know how to drain the blood from a body. It's like, oh yeah, he does. He's probably seen his dad do it a bunch of times. I didn't even realize that was a thing, and I should have,
Yeah. Well, it's something that you just have.
But why would I ever think about
any
that? Yeah.
general person may never have a reason to think about that.
Do they take the blood out of you before cremation, you think?
I don't think so. I don't see why they would. That seems like a needless step.
There's a lot of liquid.
They'll just boil.
Well, you gotta get hotter. I'm just kidding. Huh, okay. I bet Rex would know.
Yeah, probably. There's probably no cremation in that town. It's too Christian.
I don't remember at the end of the book if there was a resolution to their love triangle. I don't think there was.
No.
I think Alicia had feelings for Link. Sorry.
Yeah,
Leaf.
there was a point where at some point where she's in the school and she sort of realizes it or whatever.
But
Not
she'll
realizes
never
it,
get
but
to
voices
tell.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I don't think that they ever came back to it.
I didn't think
they
so
came back
either.
to it in Leif's mind here and there at the end. But
Yeah, when they held hands.
but her
and stuff.
memories are all screwed up because of being in
yeah.
there. So they're kind of in the middle of helping her reconstruct what she doesn't remember. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, if it becomes a series, then obviously that's something that will be, revisited at some point.
Yeah, and the way I understood it too, like in real life, their triad was it kind of had the other kid in it. Oh shoot, why can't I remember?
There was
the one
a
from the forest,
like a dedications section at the end of the
Yeah.
Kindle version that I read because it was just like another 4 pages, and there is a bit where it says and to our childhood best friend, I think it was Ben Greenwood.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, because he died from some form of cancer, I believe, in his 20s.
Oh,
and,
okay.
but he was their friend that was, you know, the outdoorsy one, or the one that was always wanting to build stuff. He said they were saying at one point they built a dam in Bowie's Creek, and they dammed like their friend Ben wanted to dam the whole lake, but they ended up just like building part of a dam, and they were catching them, like he wanted to capture a bunch of fish and have like a live fish reservoir basically.
Yeah.
And they were just like listening to them talk about like their young kid ideas and their young kid like goals of like building their fort, to have not even necessarily the fort, but to do that to a creek. You know, I've done stuff like that, just like, you know, dam up the river just to see what happens, just because we're learning, and you learn by doing, I guess. And it was just listening to them in the Q&A was just a nice cap off to the ending, because they were talking like, okay, you guys have read the book, so we're gonna do spoilers,
right?
You know, it's not like any potential interview you might see like on YouTube or something, where it's like, okay, we're gonna assume you haven't read the book, this is a promotion, whereas this one was just like, hey, we know you guys want more, so here's some answers to the questions that we'd been presented. But I guess the whole reason I started that was they had a co-ed group of friends, you know, guys and girls, but their like closest little triad, I think, was those three guys. And
their actual member of their real triumvirate was another male. Yeah,
and I don't think the character Alicia was a real person. And they said they changed the name of her like the most out of anybody else in the book, and that I did learn, just fun fact, that Rhett and Link had the first same girlfriend and share the same first kiss with the same girl. Yeah. But it was, you know, different times.
That's a pretty common story for small towns where there's probably like the child population is like 100. You know?
and if they're best friends, to be fair to that girl, like, they're probably pretty similar. Like, she probably maybe didn't know what she liked about one, then the other might have been like, oh, I thought that was more.
Or even just like in small groups, just like, okay, well, like, we broke up, but who do I date next?
Exactly.
Like, who's next in line? You know?
Yeah, and that could have been it too.
Because that was like always the joke amongst the marching band, was just like, we all just dated each other over and over again, and it was just like, okay, well, I guess I need to learn how to not care that my friend is now dating my ex.
Yeah.
And we weren't, I mean, while Portland was a small town, it's not nearly as small as we're made to feel like, one, Bleak Creek is, and two, the town that it's inspired by, you know? So I think that that's a pretty common sort of thing.
Oh, for sure. They also vocalize that they were trying to make the town, you know, the feeling of the South like its own character, you know.
Yeah.
And
definitely for people who don't have any personal experience with that, and just have like these generalized ideas that pop culture gives you, is like, well, the South likes guns and God, and you know, and that's what I think the South is.
And that was what was refreshing too about this, is that it was like a real take on what it would have been like for them back then, and as they were hashing stuff out and talking about it and trying to figure things out, it just, they were probably thinking like, would, you know, Betty Sue have said something like that? Like, yeah, it's crazy to think of it, because who would say that these days, you know? Right. And
certainly whenever you're a kid, you don't think about it being bad. It's just a thing that somebody says.
It's normal.
And so like it never registers until like you're, like you said, trying to write something. It's like, how to make these people bad. Or, you know, negative, whatever it might be.
Relatable even, you know, like any of it.
And then be like, but is that something that person would have said? And then you think, oh shit, yeah, that person was kind of racist, or whatever it might be, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Now that you're analyzing something that you didn't think about as since back then, you know, yeah.
Did you ever play the ball game, the ball throwing game at the Nets that they played?
No.
I never played that one. I think when Jackass came on,
I was never so bored that I was like, this will be good.
Yeah.
You know, like, or not good, but like I was so bored that this is an acceptable activity.
Yeah. I think when Jackass came on, they did something crazy, like they were rolling a bowling ball down something onto somebody's
like
nuts.
That,
something dumb. And I remember it being a thing, like I remember it was like, okay,
I
I'm
have
going to
heard
toss
of
this
that game before.
I'm going to toss this basketball underhand at your nuts, but like you can't block it. Like
Right.
that was basically the extent of like what I did. Like it was never like, okay, you sit on that side of the room and I'm going to sit on this side of the room and let's throw it at each other's nuts. Because I don't even think that's what they did. I think they tossed it underhand at each other's nuts in real life. But in the book, they obviously were like, let's murder the other person's chance of a future.
Yeah, they were definitely
family.
making it a little bit more extreme to be more funny.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely did dumb things. We used to, when we played racquetball, we used to play what we called extreme racquetball, and if you lost a set, you had to go stand against the wall, and the winner got to pelt you as hard as they could with the ball. And that really hurt.
Yeah, it's always funny when that was like the prize / penalty, because it was like, I'm so bad
It's
at
hurt
aim.
or get hurt, you
Hurt
know?
or get hurt, exactly. And I have such bad aim. It was just like, it was either like get hurt or embarrass yourself trying to hit somebody, because you're gonna miss for sure if you throw full power. You don't have any accuracy.
Right. Well, it had stakes to it, and it's not like we had money when we were kids to bet.
Right.
So it's like, what can we bet? Well-being.
Have well-being to gamble.
Right.
That's funny. Yeah, man, just short of going through their whole Q&A, because that's like the most recent thing on my mind. It's fun to like hop back into their town and think like, try and make it relatable to our town to see if like, did we have something like that? And I was like, well, I don't think we didn't have like a Dave's Pizza or whatever the place was that they went to.
Yeah, we just had Pizza Hut.
Literally,
we didn't have
hut,
a local pizza. We're, big enough, or at the very least, close enough to a large enough city where, it was pretty much all chains.
Yeah.
The only thing that we had that was, I remember growing up, there was a couple of like local restaurants that weren't there very long.
Yeah,
like
the
La Iguana was always like something, and then something else, and then something else, and then finally La Iguana, it became La Iguana, and it was like number 4 of the La Iguana. Like, it's just like a local chain that's around like AP and stuff like that. But
you remember that
Aransas Pass for those at home.
You remember that old like diner that we had for a little while that was like an ice
cream
joint?
Yummy's, yeah.
Yummy's, that's what I was gonna guess, and then
it moved off to North Beach, and then it failed.
Oh no, that's
yeah.
the ending I didn't want to hear, because I knew they moved, and I was just hoping like, well, now
I don't know why
Yummy's
they
down
moved
the
to
street.
North Beach, because like it's just
Nobody
like
knew
the
who they
population
were.
of North Beach is considerably less than Portland, obviously. Whatever.
Well, and nobody knew who they were. I assume,
Yeah.
like not as many, because it was kind of like a local thing. It was like,
Yeah, it was. I was never there, and it was busy though.
right. It was always just kind of like.
So it was probably struggling to begin with, and the rent at North Beach was probably less than the rent
You think?
there in
Really?
town. I would guess so.
Oh, I would have thought that would have been a hot spot just for tourist action, maybe.
But they weren't like on the water at North
that
Beach.
makes
They were
sense.
like in the shitty part of North Beach, and there's a lot of really shitty parts. I used to, when I would delivered pizzas, I would go to North Beach, and those whenever I would get the order, I'd be like, "Fuck, it's at the Seashell Inn. God damn, that's the worst part of North Beach."
The Seashell Inn.
Or some of the like the condominiums that were there that like were condos only, in that it was a building of multiple rooms that people rented out, not like a condo like the actual good condos. But
yeah, I feel like just growing up around that, I always had like a negative connotation for like the word condo, because a lot of condos are nice.
yeah,
I don't know why I always thought
my
just, like,
grandparents had a
"Ugh,
condo at the Villa del Sol, and it was really nice. But
See?
you know,
Yeah.
whatever.
But
Yeah, I couldn't really attribute or relate a lot of the things in this town to Portland.
Yeah, I
just
couldn't
because
either.
It feels like such a smaller town
Mm-hmm.
to like it's like maybe like 30% the size of Portland as we were
Yeah.
growing up. So it's kind of like unrelatable, other than just like small town, and I know what the idea of small
Mm-hmm.
town is, but whatever. What do you think was your favorite part of the book overall? And not even like event, but just like element, or whatever you want to define part as.
yeah, I think honestly, I like that it was just like a story of like two buddies, and it just and I like how much we already had about them to begin with. Like we knew so much about Rhett and Link already, that like going in already liking these two characters and kind of getting like, not the origin story obviously, but like, I don't know, it was just fun for me to follow around Rhett and Link, and I think that was my favorite part about it. I always enjoyed their dynamic, and then their dynamic bled through the rest of the writing. I think that was just my favorite element, is that like, it didn't break the fourth wall, but it was it was them writing the book about them, and
Right.
it's kind of a fun little circle of just like Rhett and Link just
It'd be like if these characters were like characters in an anthology series of works, like Boxcar Children or something like that, where it's not like, in a clear order of narrative between the books. It's just like another adventure with the Boxcar Kids or with Sherlock Holmes or whatever it is.
Or the Hardy Boys.
Yeah, and so like, the next book comes out and you're like, oh man, I'm excited to just have another adventure with this character. Like, we're having an adventure with these characters, and our previous series in the anthology is just knowing these people in their other work, And
I think you and I might have been talking about it last week, not on the show or anything, but I think that's part of what I like so much about like comedy. I just get really into learning about them as people, kind of relating to them and understanding where they would come from on a joke maybe. And then I don't really listen to much of their content because it's so different seeing something recorded, rather than being there in person. And then just getting to like their personalities and then going to see them. I always have a good time. Like when I have already kind of liked their personality, or if I like their personality and then I go watch their special, then I always give it a little bit more freeway. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. Leeway. Yeah. That was it. That was
one
close.
word difference.
That was close.
2-letter difference, not one letter. FR to L.
But yeah, that's probably I think my favorite like aspect of it, because like you were saying, it's a small town, but it's only relatable in the fact like, did we have that in our small town? I also rode my bike around, but it wasn't anything like. Like we rode ours to Zippy's Pizza and we sat there and
right, yeah.
So, but it was, you're right. Like I couldn't put them in Portland, but I could relate a little bit. But they were probably my favorite, I think. What about you?
I think just the style of comedy that was in it.
Yeah.
Was one of I almost burst out laughing at work today whenever Mike, the rich kid, is rolling in on the golf cart and they're like, and I heard a boom, 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 boom or something like that. And I was like, that sounds familiar. And then, and this is like all in Rex's head, I think. And then I recognized the melody to that New Kids on the Block song. And then fucking Mike is just sitting in the golf cart, like pointing out with his finger, just shouting the chorus. It was just fucking hilarious because that's a callback to whenever he was like, have y'all heard the New Kids on the Block album? That's really cool. I like this song, And they're like, shut up, go away. We don't like New Kids on the Block.
Yeah.
And just the constant callbacks to fucking Scooter Leg and how much like Rex like believed in it, and Leaf was like, shut up about Scooter Leg.
It pulls you in and makes you feel like I'm on the inside of this joke. Like and you could have come into this novel not knowing Rex and Link or Rhett and Link, and but still you feel like you're on the inside of the joke. It's like they're good at making inside jokes feel brand new. You know? Like I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, but you know what I mean.
That you're getting in on the ground floor with it.
Exactly. And that there's something to that, I think. Yeah. That, like in doing all those callbacks, it's like I mean, there's.
It's just like it's really authentic, and they're good characters, or they're characters that are built well enough that we believe them and are invested in them enough that we start to inherently understand their humor, and which then therefore leads to the joke, because if you don't understand a character or a person in real life, and you don't understand what their humor is and they tell a joke, you might just be thinking that they're making a weird statement, so you have to be able to buy into Rex and Leif to understand what the joke is going to be, or that it is a joke, and then be able to appreciate it.
When you made the reference to it being kind of like, it could be a series based on these characters that we're just revisiting. Like, I can't wait for another series or another episode with these guys, basically.
Right.
I don't think that would bother me at all, honestly, if this was like a Hardy Boys series. Like,
Or it just became like an anthology thing where just having a different adventure in every novel that's
fully encompassed.
Is or isn't related. Or
is or isn't related.
And maybe they call back and like, man, this would be like that one time with the water spirit, or something like that.
Remember Scooter Leg? Like, aren't you glad you got a bike? Or
they're constantly referring to Scooter Leg or whatever. Like, Rex never actually lets it down. He's like 40 and he's still talking about Scooter Leg.
And some of that stuff I think would be, I feel like they would do it in a tasteful way, that it'd be like a couple callbacks for the diehards, and then mostly the same formula to keep everybody feeling like we're all in on the ground floor. Just like how some sitcoms do it better than others. Like Arrested Development was arguably one of the better sitcoms, but it was one that you couldn't get in if you came in partially.
Yeah.
You know, it was
because then you have
critically
no
acclaimed.
idea why the banana stand is important.
Or any other joke.
Yeah, yeah.
Like none of them made sense. Like if you came into season 3, it'd be like Mr. F. And it's like, what? Is that who it was? Is that even his name?
I never got
I think
that
it was Mr.
far.
F,
I
yeah.
gave up on the show pretty quickly.
But yeah, and then they like do this little jingle and it was like,
Right, yeah.
what is
It
that?
was,
And-
yeah, that was a pretty intricate, or not intricate, but involved show.
Yeah,
You
and-
had to be involved.
Exactly. And for you know, the reason obviously I brought that up was just saying like I think that they would be able to see the wrongs being done in other works maybe, and then
Right.
and then kind of tailor their own series and story.
I think that they would then have to be like, okay, so is this now a universe? Are they now fantasy heroes? You know,
Right.
to be able to do that, even though it's set in actual, you know,
our universe.
1990s America, which could be fine. But then do they suddenly like have a sword later on or something? You know, what I would think is going to happen at this point is that they just continue along, you know, whatever the story is with the water spirit and how do they rid themselves of this curse? Because obviously the water spirit is going to seek out Alicia again and possibly Leif because he was under the water for a little bit too.
Yeah.
And so they're tied to the spirit somehow, and you know they've got to get past that monster somehow.
Yeah, ideally if they could finish that, and then I wouldn't even really be
And
upset.
then who
if-
knows what happens? Yeah.
I wouldn't even be upset if they hopped back and was like, okay, none of that stuff in the first one's happened. We're on a new story, same age, start over. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even think that would bother me. It's just like, I think it's what you
We
said
get
to
like
me
a
earlier.
Bleak Creek multiverse.
There you go.
And then they all tie together at the end.
That would be hard to do. Rhett and Link, they can do it. I think, I just feel like anything that they choose to do, if they continue this story.
I'll certainly be willing to give it a shot, whatever it would be.
Me too. And
I enjoyed this one enough and believe in it enough that, you know, I would definitely give whatever the next one is a shot.
yeah, for sure. They really did a good job. It wasn't just because, you know, we were fans that we liked it. I think they did a good all around job, and you know, that's where the pride came in, I guess, because it was like, yeah, this is a book I'd recommend to just readers, you know, like some people don't even know GMM. And so,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know,
I
a
didn't
ton of
know
people,
about them
yeah.
until like maybe 2 years ago, just because
Same
of the
here.
coworker in Round Rock that told me about them. But yeah, I think this is something that I would recommend to just about anybody,
Yeah.
unless someone told me I hate books about kids that fight water spirits. You know, I have to be pretty specifically against this genre for me to not recommend it to you.
What if there are some pretty cool adults that get involved too?
What if there's like this post-grad student aged woman who makes films? Do you
in.
like
You
that
got me
kind
in.
of a character?
I think they did a good job, and I would give them, you know, I look forward to there being a sequel. I really hope there is, you know, and they can continue on with this story, and if not, you know, I hope I would like them to write something else. You know, I
think
really
it's
enjoy
inevitable
this
that they're
book.
going to, you know,
Yeah.
whether they continue this series or not. I think it's inevitable that they're going to do another, you know, written work at some point.
Yeah, and it makes me want to give their other, you know, Book of Mythicality a go, just because it's
just see what
more
it's all
more
about,
of this
yeah.
universe, more of the world, more of the universe. It's their real lives, not not the fictitious versions.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think we did good with this choice, and just they got a new fan in a different avenue of their talents. You know how I told Joan Hugh I'd read all her stuff, but now I'm reading hers and Rhett and Link. I can't get their names right.
Right. Yeah.
But
Been in the book too long.
I've been in the book too long. I think we did good.
Pretty much all I have to say about it that I can think of at the moment. I'm sure I'll think about something tomorrow and be like, damn it. I do that almost every week. But,
Cool. Do you want to do the rundown for the next couple weeks? Let everybody know what's going on.
So next week is in the United States, Thanksgiving week.
Woo.
Which is difficult for people with retail jobs like us because it's super duper busy. And while we could literally make it work, we decided to just set it up so that we have a single episode thing that we're going to record as soon as we're done recording this episode and then just publish next week. We we went and watched Dr. Sleep last night, the new Stephen King movie, or new movie based on a book by Stephen King. It's the book Dr. Sleep is a sequel to The Shining, as if the movie that Stanley Kubrick made in 1980 was canon and not the actual book The Shining.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing because it's a movie based on a book that was written with the retroactive decision of deciding that an adaptation of your work is now the canon.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so fun too, is that it's like he hated it, and then he came around a little bit, and then he was like, yeah, now I'm gonna write about it. It's like, all right, cool, full circle. Yeah. You're on board.
It's like a meta multiverse, but in any case, so we went and watched the movie, and we're just going to do a single episode on that. And so go watch it. It's very good.
Very good.
I really enjoyed it. You really enjoyed it, I think.
Yeah.
I remember you saying.
And we had Kenneth with us who hadn't seen The Shining, and he said he still really enjoyed it. So,
so
we gave him a
evidently
little rundown,
stands on its own, even. So definitely check that out if you like, and then hear what we're going to, just our general opinions. It's not going to be a long episode. I bet we only get about 30 minutes out of it, but that'll be next week.
Yeah.
And then the week after that, we're going to start a new book series. We're very likely not going to read the whole series for the show, but we're going to read the first in the saga. It's the Witcher series, which is a very popular fantasy series. It's spawned a video game series, and there's a Netflix series that's going to start December 20th, starring Henry Cavill of DC fame as the main character Geralt. It's a book series written by, and I'm going to ruin this guy's name, Andrzej Sapkowski.
Polish.
He's Polish, yeah. It's kind of an older series. He first published some of these books in the 90s, and then they finally made it west at some point. But it's really heavy fantasy, think in the vein of the Song of Ice and Fire series, realistic, super fantastical in that there's a bunch of like monsters and things like that, but it's not like, and then I went flying on a dragon, and then magic made everything happy. Like, everything's fucked up in this universe.
Yeah, and I'm pretty excited because I don't know really anything about the Witcher universe, and just from the little snippet we got, it already seems like there's a bit backwards versions of everything. Like, elves are typically renowned for being the fair folk, the graceful, beautiful, perfect ones, and it seems like in this one they're like a low class B-rated citizen.
They lose a really big war and then become second-class citizens. Yeah, and it's not your standard fantasy series. It's what in the 90s was probably this was near revolutionary. Besides the existence of the Song of Ice and Fire series, but in these days is not so uncommon now that we're all on the dark fantasy train.
Yeah,
but this is it's not standard by any means.
Yeah, I mean, all aboard.
So what we're doing is that there's also 2 prequels, which are really just collections of stories about the main character that sort of get you introduced to the universe. Each of them is around like 300-ish pages. By no means does anybody else need to read them, and we each may not finish them either, but we're going to try and read them all because this is a 2-week period that we're going to have before the next episode, or before the first Witcher episode. So we're going to try and read them all just to do so. And then what we're going to actually do episodes on is the first part of the saga, which is a 7-book series called Blood of Elves.
And we're reading the first 3 chapters, right?
Yes, the first 3 chapters. It's about 100-ish pages.
Yeah, so
there's only 7 chapters, and we're gonna break it in 3 episodes. We're gonna do the first 3 chapters, second 2 chapters, the last 2 chapters. So that's what you have to look forward to. You can get started on it if you would like. If you want to read the 2 prequels, they're The Last Wish and The Sword of Destiny, in that order. And then Blood of Elves is what we'll be starting for the actual episodes we'll be recording. First 3 chapters.
Yeah, this will be interesting. I think it'll be super juicy content. It's a completed series, and it'll be fun to talk about something, if it is as grand and epic as like the, Song of Ice and Fire, which it probably is. Otherwise, I doubt they could have made such a monolithic game, out of it. Like, it's huge. And I think it'll be interesting to see just like, how everything, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see what happens, just because I know nothing, and coming in so like cold and with ice and fire, like not like all this negative stereotype.
Right,
It'll be cool, like just because like we're coming into this fresh, it's already completed. We're gonna have like big things. We're gonna be like, I wonder if this ties in. Like, who's Jon Snow's mom? Like with the things of that, grandness, we're gonna be able to guess, speculate. There won't really be this big deep fan lordom of like, this is what I speculate will happen because of what I read in chapter 4, part B of book 3, and which is awesome. I love that. Like, I definitely fell down that rabbit hole for the Ice and Fire series, and that's another thing that got me excited about this one, is just seeing how big the wiki fell out of like, this is a 7-part book series with lots of characters and things to learn. It's just, there's obviously a lot of love and time and tears and sweat and everything poured into this book. Is just, and you can feel it before
it's
even
based
starting.
on a lot of Polish legend.
Oh, there you go. That could be why it feels so epic already. Just like and not I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's a lot. There's a lot happening in this series. And I'm really excited. Depending on how much we enjoy it, and how much we enjoy talking about it for the purposes of the show, we may also do episodes on the Netflix series that's going to be starting in December.
Right.
It's just a possibility.
For sure. Yeah. No.
Obviously we'll see how we feel about it come that time. But something to possibly look forward to. But so that's what we're doing. We're going to start that and look for Dr. Sleep next week and Witcher after that. Hope that everybody has a good Thanksgiving, if that's something that you celebrate.
Yeah.
And y'all will see us next week, but we won't see y'all until later. So we'll see y'all around then. You know where to find us?
Yeah. At Twitter and Instagram at ears_stamps, and then dog ears and timestamps at gmail.com. You can get us wherever you get your podcasts, wherever they're streamed.
Except Spotify.
Except for Spotify. And yeah, you can't get it on that. I was like, no, are we on SoundCloud? No, that's different. And you know how to find us. Just, and send us an email, like, rate, review. I'd love to see some more, 5-star comments, and we'll get them read. And just let us know what you think, and tell us about the Witcher series. If you play the game, if you're excited about it, what at this point, they came out in the 90s, so you can't send me a spoiler. You know what I mean? So if you send us something, it's not going to be a spoiler, but, tell us what you think. Tell us what you like, what your favorite part is. If it is a spoiler, maybe that's something we can look forward to. But, just let's get involved. Book club.
Don't spoil anything for me. Only spoil things for Jordan. He's the one who doesn't care.
Will's played the game that's after the series, so he should know how it ends. I'm just kidding. Right. I'm just kidding. All bitter. No, don't send us spoilers, but just enjoy it along with us.
Anyways.
Yeah.
I'm Will Hedrick.
I'm Jordan Schaffer.
This is Doggers and Timestamps. We can pause for a second. If you want to just...
I'm in airplane mode now.
Okay.
God damn it, dude. Like, it was like fucking 3 texts from Ace.
I know.
Like, it's fine when we're fucking just chilling, but God, that was annoying, and it was in the middle of me talking, and I know you can hear it, and it's like, God.
That's such a fucking habit that, like, the group started, was just like, it's funny if I send one sentence across 8 text messages, and it's just like
it feels more conversational too, but dude, yeah.
Sometimes it's the literal worst thing.
Oh yeah.